Okay, as the highest rated solo queue player at the moment, I wanted to make a tier list. I basically wanted to talk about what I think is the best in the game mainly, and then I'm going to explain why the things are the worst in the game, and for the things that are okay, I'm going to kind of brush over them quite quickly with like quite a broad brush and tell you why I think they're okay. So far this season, I have 215 games on my main with 65% win rate, as you can see. I've mainly been playing Mew, Delphox, Mime, and then there's little bits of other Pokemon sprinkled in here. I'll quickly go over them all quickly just so you can see them. I've tried to keep my Pokemon pool quite small as of the minute because I think it's been the best way to climb. I have about 80 games on my second account as well, which is also in Masters. So yeah, I guess we'll just swap straight over to we'll swap straight over to the tier list here, and I'll just go in order of the Pokemon as they are on the tier list. So starting with Venusaur, I think Venusaur was really good on the old map. I'm not sure what's changed that's made it feel so bad, whether it's the Unite move changes or the other Pokemon that are strong in the meta right now, but there's this Pokemon doesn't feel so good. I think if you're going any of the builds, you should probably go Solar Beam, but both are terrible. This is probably somewhere between C and B. This isn't a good pick, honestly. Gengar, both builds are super good. I think it's probably A+ in solo queue, just because of the absolute mayhem that it is. You can really go around everywhere and get in picks. So I think A+ is fair. The only thing keeping it out of S for solo queue is probably just Mime and Mew. Like, these are the two main Pokemon that you're seeing like every game, and if the Mew has Unite, you really can't kill it, and if the Mime, if you're going on the Mime, you're probably going to lose it, especially if he has Unite or he hits his Power Swap on you. So yeah, Mime, this is easily S tier. Even after the hotfixes, this Pokemon's still insanely broken. It does too much healing, too much damage. It takes too much damage. Its Unite move cooldown is extremely low. Like, this Pokemon does absolutely everything. Mime's extremely easy to play at the moment as well. It's very easy to carry on. This has got to be probably the best pick at the moment for like most players in the game. I think the amount of skill that this Pokemon takes to how effective it is just ridiculous. Snorlax, I think Snorlax is probably A. I think maybe it's B in solo queue. If you're picking this, you could definitely pick it in situations where your team has enough carries and you feel like you can be a really solid tank. I think on the new map, the thing that tanks are struggling with at the moment is that they have to farm as well. A lot of tanks that end in the game, like at the Rayquaza fight between level 11 and 12, and like you're just missing so many stats, especially when you see so many Pokemon level 14 and 15 by Rayquaza. I think this is why tanks have sort of dropped in the win rate a lot since the release of Theia Sky Ruins. I think Snorlax is definitely the best tank at the moment though, so yeah. Gardevoir, you can't play this Pokemon at the moment. There's too much that counters it, especially in solo queue. I think there's room for this Pokemon in competitive play. It's probably somewhere in B or A, maybe. I can't tell too much though because I don't play competitively, but when I think about how the champion or the Pokemon functions, I feel like it will work quite well. Next is Absol. This Pokemon is also S tier. There's a lot of S tier Pokemon at the moment for solo queue. With how hectic it is, it makes so many more Pokemon viable. Absol ever since it got those buffs and was extremely overpowered, has sort of sat in a really nice spot between like A and S tier. Probably A plus and S tier. I think with the new map, with the amount of farm that's on the map, the size of the map, and how quick Absol clears, it really loves this new map. You can really get around everywhere super quickly, super easily. And some of the other Pokemon in the meta it does pretty well into, like Glaceon. It doesn't do great into Mime. It does okay into Mew though. Like, there's things that it does really well into. Garchomp. I think there is a place for this Pokemon. It's just not a very strong place. They need to do something with this Pokemon. I don't know what they could do with it. It almost needs like a permanent X speed. Like, it's just too slow to get anywhere. Unless you hit your combo to Dragon Rush, like, it just doesn't do anything. I feel like if you have your 5, I think it's 5 auto stacks, your 5 passive auto stacks. If you had those up and you got like maybe like a 15 or 20% movement speed boost, I think this Pokemon would instantly jump up to B or A tier. But yeah, you really can't stick on anything, especially with mine being in the meta at the moment as well. Like, you're just going to get power swapped, you're going to do no damage, it's going to out heal you, it's going to out damage you and just kill you. Next, Lucario. I think Lucario is okay right now. I think for solo queue it struggles a little bit, but it's probably A tier. Both builds are super viable on it. I think Power Up Punch, a lot of the professional players are liking Power Up Punch at the moment as well as X Speed. I think they're both solid movesets. There's not really a lot to talk about. I think this Pokemon's kit is just so good that it's always going to be good. Crustle. I think with there being more of a backcapping meta, there's more of a room in the meta for Crustle. I think the weak early game really hurts this Pokemon, especially playing against some of the newer Pokemon and the updated Pokemon. Like, you really struggle. It's probably... I feel like I need another tier here. I'm going to add a B plus in as well. I feel like it's a little bit better than these two Pokemon. B plus. But it's not as good as Lucario for sure, especially for solo queue. I think if you put a lot of games in on Crustle though, you can for sure make this Pokemon work. Next, Greninja. I think Greninja has always been a Pokemon ever since release that's always going to be strong. The ability to reset your Surf on a kill makes this Pokemon always going to be useful in your games. It has super fast clear speed and it's probably one of the more useful junglers at level 7, so I think this is probably A or A plus. Maybe A plus. I think if you were to play it in lane, it'd probably be B plus. I think it's actually pretty good in lane at the moment. Next is Talonflame. This is a Pokemon that's kind of hard to rank. It's only just sort of come into the meta with the Fly, Flame Charge and the Skull Shield sort of backcapping thing. I think once people get better at it, I would be more likely to put it in A plus or S. But right now I think I'm going to have to put it in maybe A or B plus. I think this is going to take a lot of games to work out exactly how and when you can score and be really effective with it. But once you work that out, I think it's probably A plus or S tier. I think for now I'm going to leave it in A. I don't think there's a place in the game for Brave Bird at the moment. You just don't do enough damage. You can't really get a lead early. With a lot of the junglers that are being played at the moment, they're just more useful than you are at level 5, so it makes it super hard to gank and win a gank. Even like 3v2, sometimes if the enemy are playing safe enough that you just can't find kills, it's pretty hard to find dives with this Pokemon early as well, so I think it's struggling in that sense. Charizard is something that's kind of snuck up recently again. I've always liked Charizard. I played a lot of it on the old map. I'm more inclined to put it in A+, I think. I think A's fine at the moment. There's a lot of Pokemon that Charizard, I mean, it does really well into pretty much everything. You can fall behind pretty early against Absol, but apart from that, like, on this map there's so much XP, taking this into the jungle just makes it so you're always level 9 or 10 before the first objective spawns. The only thing that makes me hesitate putting it into S is this Pokemon can get its Unite cancelled really easily, and if you miss time onto someone unstoppable and don't get your Unite off, I really don't think this Pokemon is that good. So just from a purely from a perspective of being able to pick it up and play it from day one, I think it probably goes in A. Next is Zeraora. I think this is probably B. I think this struggles in the same ways that Charizard struggles in the early game. Not getting your primary move, your primary damaging move till level 8 really hurts it. It makes it so that you can't really gank early. You just have to sort of accept that you're going to fall a little bit behind the enemy jungler and be really strict with your jungle clearing. There should be no reason that you find kills on this early. I think there's one exception to that, is if you're running Spark. I think Spark has a lot of potential to catch the enemies off guard early. But then you have Spark in the late game. As for builds, both builds on this Pokemon are good. I think Wild Charge does better into things like Mime, Absol, and some other picks that we're going to cover later. Like Delphox, Glaceon, Mew. So I think the Wild Charge build is pretty good right now, especially for solo queue. Cinderace. I think Cinderace is struggling right now, honestly. It's probably B tier. You don't have that early power like you do on a lot of the other strong picks in the game right now, so you kind of don't feel that useful until you're level 7. And then even when you get your level 7, you're so quick to die and you don't really output that much damage that it's just really not that impactful at all. There are times when you can get ahead on this Pokemon, and if you can get to level 15 by the Rayquaza fight, I think this Pokemon is probably B+ or A tier. But getting there is so difficult, especially against things like Pursuit Absol, Greninja Gengar. Like, all of these Pokemon just completely hard counter you. So it feels like you can't really do a lot against them. Eldegoss, I think this Pokemon is probably B tier. I can imagine. I haven't really seen it at all, to be honest. I think I played one game of it and it felt the same as always. Like, you're not that impactful. If you want to play the healing build, like, you would just play Mime or you would play Blissey. And if you wanted to play the damage build, you would just pick something else anyway. So, I mean, this Pokemon is probably B. There's not really much else to say about it. Cramorant, I think, is in a really good spot at the moment. It's probably A or A+. This is one of the Pokemon that I used at the start of the season to get to Masters very quickly. I think with its Unite being as strong as it is, it's always going to be impactful. And both builds are really good at the moment. You have to... like, both moveset choices are really good. Either Dive or Surf. So, I think... in terms of ease of play as well, I would say this is probably A+. Like, this is probably one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. It has a super good early game, super good late game. The dive build is probably better at the moment with things like Talonflame and Absol and Mime running around, but you can make the other build work as well. So I think just from the early, mid, late game and the ease of play, I think it goes an A+. Next we have Blastoise. I think I've played a couple games of Blastoise on my second account, and with all the Pokemon that are the best right now, like, this doesn't really have a place. It's probably B or C tier. Like, it's so hard to find farm on this game, on this map, on something like Blastoise, where you don't have any secure really. Your water gun's not particularly strong, and you can't really fight early, so you're missing out on like everything until you get to level 9, and usually you'll be so far behind by level 9 that you have to really look for kills onto people that don't have their Unite moves or don't have their X speed up or whatever. It doesn't farm particularly well. It's hard to get stacks on. Like, there's not really anything going for this Pokemon. I think if you get 6 stacks and you're running the Rapid Spin Water Spout build, you can still do really well into things like Absol, Mime, all of these picks, honestly, it's really good into. But the early game is so weak that you shouldn't really be able to get to a point like that. Pikachu. I think Pikachu is a pretty good attacker at the moment. You have a decently strong early game. You can fight early, you can farm early. Your Unite's on a super low cooldown when you get it. Like, this is just a good Pokemon to help your team out. Like, it's probably one of the better attackers at the moment. I wouldn't sleep on Pikachu at the moment at all, honestly. It does really well into things like Absol, Gengar, Greninja. It matches up okay into things like Mew. Obviously, you get outranged super hard. Delphox it does relatively well on. You can just one-shot them. Glaceon, you can one-shot them as well with your Unite. So, I think in terms of its matchups, you don't play it so much as like a big team fight Unite move. You use it almost as like an assassin Unite move. You take someone out of the fight before they even get to play. Obviously, to do that you have to run the Volt Tackle Electro Ball build, which I think is just a better build anyway. Ninetales. I think this Pokemon's complete trash. There's no way that you can play it into any of the Pokemon in the meta at the moment. It doesn't CC people for long enough. It doesn't have enough secure early game. You can't really farm that well on it. It doesn't do anything. The Unite move's kind of meh. Yeah, it just doesn't really do anything. It really struggles into all of these Pokemon. Like, it would never win a 1v1 against a single one of these Pokemon in the top 3 tiers. So I think it just has to be D tier at the moment. Wigglytuff. I think Wigglytuff is in an okay spot. If you want to play a supporter, or like support or defender type of Pokemon, you play Wiggly. With the changes to the crit emblems, I think it goes down a little bit. I haven't had the chance to test it with Double Slap, but I've heard that Double Slap's much more powerful now. So maybe Double Slap is the way to go. But this Pokemon has always sort of struggled. It's not really tanky enough. It doesn't really do enough damage. It's kind of just like a CC bot. If your team needs CC and it needs to be able to survive against things like Mime, the Unite move's good. But I think with the new map as well, it made rollout feel much worse. There's a lot more walls, but they're in weird positions. I think you have to put a serious amount of games in to make rollout work. But I think it's probably on the same tier as all these, honestly. Like, it's kind of whatever. Slowbro. I think Slowbro is struggling at the moment. You get hard outranged by almost everything, and Mime just kills you or runs in your face and face tanks you and heals its teammates whilst you're trying to kill them. This Pokemon's, yeah, I think it's really struggling at the moment. It's maybe... I would probably actually put this... Now I'm doing this, I'm realising there's probably more rows than I need. I definitely need more rows than I had. There's a B-. I think this goes here. I wouldn't say it struggles as much as these. Slowbro's early game maybe pulls it up to here, honestly. It's probably better than all these Pokemon, honestly. You just really struggle in the late game. You don't really have that much impact. Now I've made this extra tier. I'm wondering if there's anything I'd add down here. Maybe Venusaur goes down here. Next up, Machamp. I think the Unite changes hurt Machamp quite a lot. But this Pokemon still has an extremely useful Unite move. I don't know if you take Submission with it. Submission does really well into some of these Pokemon for the extra CC, but like the CC is not really long enough and it doesn't really do enough damage, so it doesn't really beat any of these up here. But I think just for the Unite, it's probably the best Unite move in the game, especially on a map like this, where a lot of the team fights end up happening in these weird corridors. Kind of the same as the old map. You sort of really have that ability to get like a 3 to 5 man ult. So I'd say Machamp's probably B+. I would still go Dynamic Punch, I think. It gives you access to a lot of the Pokemon that sit on the back line. If you go Submission, you're playing more of like a front to back game. It doesn't feel as good. You can still run over the back line with Submission relatively well because you get the Unstoppable, but a lot of the Pokemon will still just kill you on your way in. And you won't have enough damage to kill them. So, yeah, it's kind of... It's in a good spot, but it's definitely been better before. Blissey. I never see this Pokemon anymore. I think it's still strong. It's definitely stronger than all these. It's probably B+ still. The Unite move on this Pokemon is just so insane. Both builds are good as well. It has so much lane presence. It has so much late game presence. I think the only thing it struggles with again is that it needs levels. You need to get it to at least level 12, and if something goes wrong or like your team falls behind, it feels impossible. So I think paired with the recent nerfs to it as well has made it much worse. But I still think it's probably B+. Mamoswine. Where does Mamo go? I think this Pokemon provides so much CC, but there's so many Pokemon at the moment that don't care about that CC. Like, if you play any of like the big Pokemon that are being played a lot at the moment, then you're not worried about getting CC'd because you're playing so far range away. But it does do decently well. It's probably B tier, probably top of B tier. I would probably play this over Slowbro. I would not play this over Snorlax. And then it's probably something like this. Maybe Eldegoss even goes here. I think it just struggles too much. Sylveon. A lot of people have lost hype on Sylveon. I'm not really sure why. It feels pretty good to play. Both builds are viable. The Mystical Fire struggles to farm a lot, but you have decent presence in early game. It allows you access to backline as well. You can be super unkillable against a lot of Pokemon. It doesn't do that much damage though, so it's probably bottom of B+. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. I think the Unite move's good as well. If you go Hyper Voice, you have really good lane, and I think you can get ahead enough in lane that it shouldn't matter too much that the Pokemon's a bit weaker than it used to be. So I think it has that going for it, but yeah, it definitely doesn't push into this higher tier. Greedent. I think Greedent's struggling at the moment. With the map being so long, you have to take... a lot of people are taking like the yellow emblems, and I think you lose so much power from the yellow emblems that it's probably only like a B tier. If you're a good Greedent, you really have the ability to take over fights. You do super well into a lot of these Pokemon as well. Like mine can't really do too much to you unless you're getting hit by a power swap. But you should never really be in range of a mine unless they're playing like full 5v5 fights in solo queue, which isn't the case. So I think I think it's okay, to be honest. It's probably the defender that you can carry the most on at the moment. So maybe it's here. Like, if you're going to play the backcapping strategy, you'd probably pick Greedent over Russell. Decidueye. I recently played a lot of this on a different account, and the ability to carry on this Pokemon is solo queue is so difficult. You have so many things that are just diving onto you. If you're not playing perfectly at the edge of your range, then you just die. I think the lane is so weak, you have to get so creative with how you find your levels. Oftentimes, if you're not taking your jungles camps, like, you really can't play this Pokemon. You're just stuck at that level 5 or 6 and you don't really do anything, and then if you rotate before you're level like 7 or 8, you're not really doing anything at the top Reggie fight. So I think this Pokemon's really struggling at the moment. I wouldn't say it struggles as much as any of these. I would say it's definitely stronger than all of these. Probably stronger than Venusaur as well, just because if you can find those levels. But it's a Pokemon that you don't want taking up the jungle slot, so you really want to play it in lane, and it really struggles in lane. So yeah, it's just not that strong at the moment. Next up we have Dragonite. Dragonite was sort of running the game on the old map. With there being such a massive... There was such like a massive thing about flipping the Zapdos that the Hyper Beam was just so good. But with Hyper Beam nerfs, Dragon Dance nerfs, I think this Pokemon's moved down probably to B+. You can make this Pokemon work relatively easily. I think you just have to play it in a bit of a different way. You're not really looking about these secures so much in these sort of fights. I think the Outrage build is also pretty good right now. But a lot of things just you get out tanked by. So yeah, it's not great, but you can for sure make Dragonite work. It's another Pokemon where its kit is strong enough to the point where it probably should always be somewhat meta. Or not meta, but like it should always be somewhat playable. Serena, I think this Pokemon's still A tier. A Pokemon that can reset its abilities as much as this and doesn't have to focus so much on basic attacks. You have so much ability to kite people or just run away. Both builds are good on it as well. Like, Serena isn't really struggling. I think the only thing that's made Serena worse is the damage on Stomp has been nerfed, but you still have the Micro Stun that cancels a lot of abilities. So you have that going for you. And things like Mime and Absol you can sort of just run away from. Even Gengar, you can just run away from these things. So yeah, you have the ability in the late game to assassinate someone as well. Like, that's always a thing. I think this Pokemon's still doing pretty well. Yeah, I think the only thing that is really struggling with is finding stacks. With the changes to top lane, it makes stacking much harder because the Pokemon are further away from the goal, and there's only one berry as well. So it makes it super easy for the enemies to just kill you as you go for stacks, and because you're so weak and you don't really have that great secure, I think it makes it just that little bit more worse. Trevenant. I've played a fair bit of Trevenant and I didn't hate it. It's struggling with this thing about range with some of the S tier picks. I'm going to go over the S tier picks next. Let's move them up. Actually, I won't move them all up. I think this, again as well, if you get Power Swapped by Mime, if you get touched by Charizard, like, these are Pokemon that can just kill you. It doesn't do anything against Talonflame. It can't really touch Pup. Lucario as well. Like, this Pokemon's kind of struggling a bit. It's not that tanky. It doesn't really do a lot of damage. I think it's one of the Pokemon that you can find stacks on quite easily early. I don't know if I would say it's worse than these two though, so it probably goes on about the same level. Yeah, I think that looks good. Maybe Dragonite's somewhere like this. Next, Delphox. I think this is an easy S. I think this is an easy S tier Pokemon, to be honest. If you take Flame Charge on Delphox, you just completely decimate the late game. You have a super strong mid game. With there being so much farm on this map, you can really find level 11 super easily. Which makes it... you can find level 11 super easily, which makes it able to just really take over the mid game. Flame Charge is on such a low cooldown. It gives you great mobility. You do decently well into all of these Pokemon, mine, Absol. Like, if Absol has Pursuit and you're far enough away, he'll just jump into you and kill himself. Like, there's nothing he can really do to get to you. I think this is one of the best Pokemon in the game for solo queue at the moment. I really can't praise this Pokemon enough. Next, I'm going to do Mew. I have to do this. Mew is in its own tier. I don't know how this Pokemon was released in this state. This Pokemon does everything, and it does everything the best in the game. I genuinely think there is not a better Pokemon in the game at any role that Mew can fill. Apart from healing, of course. But you could take this Pokemon anywhere. You can take it jungle, you can invade, you can lane, you have the longest range, you have the most damage, you have guaranteed damage, you have safety, you have great mobility, you have safety with your Unite. This Pokemon just does absolutely everything in the game, honestly. I don't see a world where this is ever okay and allowed to be in the game. It does way too much. I don't even think with a numbers nerf this Pokemon is going to lose its dominance. I think with all the moves being as good as they are, and people sleeping on some of the moves like Electro Ball, even if you nerf it, like, you can just move to the other moves. Like, you have to nerf literally everything about this Pokemon. It's so insane that this is allowed to be in the game. Next up, Aegis Slash. As for Aegis Slash, I think he's not doing too well at the moment. I'm not sure what it is about it, but it doesn't feel the same as it did on the old map. Especially in solo queue, it's probably still somewhere around the B tier. I would probably still pick it over things like these three defenders. But with some of the meta picks at the moment, like, you just can't really do a lot. Hoopa, I don't have anything to say about Hoopa. This Pokemon's completely terrible. It has one use now, which is its Unite move. Trick doesn't feel very good. You can't really walk up and hit anything. Your Unite move, all as you can do is walk up to places and move your team there. It really doesn't have any uses at the moment. With the nerfs to the base healing as well, and using Hyperspace Hole, it just doesn't feel that good. People also not knowing exactly what objective they want to go to doesn't help. Like, you don't get people taking portals top or portals to go bot. There's nothing that this Pokemon really does. I don't know if I've even seen anyone take a portal with Hoopa this entire season. So yeah, I think this Pokemon's completely useless. It's probably the worst in the game. Duraludon. This is one of those Pokemon where, if you know how to play it, I think it's better than people think it is. But because it's so squishy, it doesn't really have the ability to hard carry solo queue games. It's probably the top of B+. I wouldn't say it's on the same tier as these, but I think here is fine, honestly. You can carry games with this. It's relatively easy to get ahead because you have a super strong level 5. You can take it into the lane or the jungle. If you take it into lane and you lane into something like Mew, you're going to really struggle. But if you're not against Mew, this Pokemon still does fine in lane, and it feels kind of bad to take this into the jungle, especially if you're into something like Absol and they invade you. Like, you're just going to die and there's nothing you can do about it. So, I think Duraludon's in an okay spot. It's probably one of the only Pokemon as well that can just flip the Rayquaza straight on spawn. It does so much damage to objectives. It has great zone control as well with the Unite. If your team has positioning on Rayquaza, you really feel good on this Pokemon. But if you don't, it feels just completely terrible. So I think here's fine. Maybe it'd be lower. Somewhere around here? Yeah. Azumarill, another D tier Pokemon. If you're picking this Pokemon, like, I think you've either played a lot of games on it and you've worked out what it's really good at, or you're just completely griefing your team. I've played like 14 games of this season. I have like a 40% win rate. This Pokemon doesn't do anything. It doesn't kill squishies. It doesn't have early lane pressure. It doesn't have late pressure. It can't really invade well. It doesn't have any gap closers. It doesn't move fast. Like, I can't think of a single thing that Azumarill does better than like most other Pokemon in the game. Like, I would just not pick this Pokemon until it gets insane buffs. It has to just have insane numbers. I think the reason it is the way is just because of the passive, the way that the crits work. You have to play around 1v1s, and it just doesn't feel that good to do that. Espeon. I haven't really tested Espeon. I played a lot of it in Season 4. I think I had about a 60% win rate over like 70 games or something. It was feeling really good on the old map. You have great zone control, and the pressure that it exerts in lane is really insane. I think it's probably A tier at the moment, although I haven't been able to test it. Of course, it really struggles into all of these other A tier picks, so it's probably lower. It's probably somewhere around here. There's nothing that you can really do to any of these Pokemon as Espeon. So yeah, I don't really know. And the way that it can get one shot, I don't know if I'd even put it over Sylveon. It's somewhere close to Sylveon. These two are kind of... They fulfill similar roles. I think this has better early pressure though. But like, everything can just kill you on Espeon. Like, at least you have your Unite move on Sylveon. Next is Glaceon. This, again, is probably another S tier pick. I'm not sure why. If you go against something and you fall behind on Glaceon, this Pokemon is not even that strong. This Pokemon's only strong because it finds it so easy to get ahead, especially ganking early lanes with full stacks. But if I had to choose between Espeon or... if I had to choose between Glaceon and Absol, I would choose Absol every time. In fact, I would probably even choose these two junglers over Glaceon as well. Maybe not Greninja, but it would probably be something like this, honestly. I would rather have a Gengar, I would rather have a Absol, I would rather have a Mew, I would rather have a Delphox. Like, I would rather have all of these Pokemon in the jungle. Okay, second to last Pokemon, we have Buzzwole. I think there's a place in the meta for this Pokemon at the moment. It does decently well into things like Mime. It can assassinate things like Delphox, Mew. It does decently well into Absol. You can't really get one shot, especially with a more tanky emblem build. I think Buzzwole for sure has a place. It does well into all of these picks. Obviously, Charizard Unite just trumps everything in the game. Like, Charizard Unite is completely up here. But if you're just fighting any of these Pokemon, you can for sure win it on Buzzwole. I think Buzzwole is like A tier. The main problem that Buzzwole has is the late game team fights. But if you play it as more of an assassin, I think you can really make this work. I think I would rather have these Pokemon on my team anyway, just from ease of play and how easily they are to execute. But I think Buzzwole honestly belongs up here. I don't know why people are sleeping on it so much. Some people just really think this Pokemon's bad, and I can't work out why, because I've played so much of it and it feels so good. Final Pokemon is Tyranitar. I think with Tyranitar's ult move not being able to crit anymore, it really hurt it. It kind of incentivizes you to take less crit, but then your regular autos crit less, so you kind of are left in a weird spot. But it does decently well into a lot of these Pokemon. At the top, like all of these Pokemon, it does really well into. It's why I think it deserves A+. I just think it's still really hard to make this Pokemon work. It's one of those ones where you just fall behind super early always. That unless you get really creative with how you're finding farm, like invade an enemy jungle when they're not there, or taking the Baltoys in mid, like it's really hard to make this work. But if you can get to level 9 relatively early, I would say by about the 6-minute mark, I think you're really flying on this Pokemon and it's really strong. So yeah, I think that's it for the solo queue tier list. I don't know if, looking back on it now, I don't think there's anything I would change here. I think this is pretty solid. There's a couple Pokemon that I definitely want to do more testing of. Those are Espeon, Pikachu. I want to play a little bit more Venusaur, some Decidueye, and some Zera. Apart from that, I feel pretty good about where everything is in here. Okay, cool.